it's Valerie. Welcome back to another week's What's for Dinner. If you're new here, welcome. I would love if you would hit that subscribe button and join my YouTube family. I put out What's for Dinner videos every week on Sundays, and this week I have 3 inspirational meals for you, and I hope that you enjoy them. So let's get started. This first meal is Shepherd's Pie Baked Potatoes. I'm starting off with 6 russet potatoes. The recipe calls for 6 to 8 potatoes, and I'm just piercing these with a fork. The recipe also calls for baking them. I didn't want to have spend an hour baking them because I didn't have a lot of time on hand. So I'm just doing this quickly in the microwave by piercing some holes with a fork. Gonna spray some olive oil and rub that olive oil all over the skins. And I'm also going to go ahead and sprinkle some salt on them. I just did it on one side, and when we flip, I'll do some more salt. And for this many potatoes, you're going to want to do about 6 to 7 minutes, and then go ahead and pull them out and flip them over. And I'm using tongs because they are hot to just flip each of them over, and then you're going to place them back in the microwave for another 6 to 7 minutes. Or if you need a little extra time, just go ahead and add a little extra. You'll know by placing your fork in them to see if they're done or not. And now I'm taking half of a yellow onion, and I'm just going to go ahead and dice that up. And the recipe calls for 1 small onion, and I only had a larger sized onion, so that's why I'm using half. And now I'm taking my large skillet over medium-high heat, and I'm going to go ahead and add in a 1 pound of ground turkey, and I'm just using my meat chopping tools to go ahead and break that up. And you're going to let that continue to brown and break it up as much as you like. I like my meat pretty broken up. I don't like big chunks. So yeah, just continue to let that brown until there is no pink remaining. Next, I'm adding in all of that diced up onion, and I'm also going to add in some garlic. It calls for 2 cloves of garlic. I believe I did 2 or 3 of them, and I'm going to go ahead and add that in, as well as 1 teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of ground pepper, and then just go ahead and give that all a good stir. At this point in the recipe, it calls for the vegetables, like your carrots. This is if you're using fresh vegetables, so fresh carrots, and peas and things like that. But I chose to use just a frozen bag of mixed vegetables. It was just way more convenient for me. So I'm using a 12-ounce bag there, and I'm just gonna go ahead and add those in. It was really a time saver. I loved how quick this meal came together. But it was still very filling and hearty and very delicious. So I'm just going to go ahead and cook those vegetables until they are soft. Next, I'm taking 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour and sprinkling that all over your meat mixture. And I'm just going to go ahead and give that a good stir, coat all of that vegetable and meat mixture with the flour. This is going to help it thicken up, and yeah, just continue to stir that. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in some tomato paste. I'm adding in 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. The recipe calls for 2.5 cups of beef broth. I'm just using Better Than Bouillon, the beef Better Than Bouillon, mixed in with some water. This measuring cup is 2 cups, so I'm doing that. And then I'm adding in the half a cup of water to make the equivalent of the 2.5 cups of beef broth. And I'm just going to stir that in with all of my vegetable and beef mixture and the tomato paste. Next, I'm going to be adding in 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of dried oregano, a 1/4 teaspoon of dried thyme, and again, give that all a good stir. And then you're just going to go ahead and bring that to a boil, and once it's boiling, you're going to go ahead and reduce your heat to medium-low and let that simmer for 20 to 25 minutes until it's all nice and thick. I have this Taylor Farm Caesar chopped kit salad that I needed to use up, so I'm going to have that as my side to this. And my potatoes are done, and I'm creating a slit, and I'm trying to pinch them to create that little pocket for the meat mixture. They are hot, so be careful. Maybe use tongs if you need to. And then I placed that meat mixture, topped it with some cheese, and there's that salad, and that was really, really good and hearty. This next meal is Instant Pot Chicken Taquitos. You definitely don't need an Instant Pot to do it, though. To start, you're going to need 1 pound of boneless, skinless chicken breasts, and I've placed that in the bottom of my Instant Pot, and I'm pouring a half a cup of water over it, and then I'm adding a teaspoon of salt, as well as a teaspoon of cumin, and then the recipe calls for half a teaspoon of garlic powder, but I had to go ahead and make sure I added a teaspoon because I love garlic powder, and then a teaspoon of chili powder, and it doesn't call for any onion powder, but I also added a half a teaspoon of onion powder. Next, the recipe calls for you to add a 4-ounce can of diced green chilies on top. I had this chunky green chili salsa, and I needed to use it up, so I'm going to go ahead and use that in place of that. And just I'm putting that 4 ounces right on top. Then you just need a block of softened cream cheese. I'm sure it doesn't need to be softened. It'll soften in the Instant Pot, and I'm putting a lid on that, making sure it's sealing. And I'm just going to go ahead and cook that for 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes for your chicken, and I let my chicken a natural release for 10 minutes always, and I'll remove any additional pressure after that 10 minutes is up. But I like the natural release because I feel like it doesn't suck the moisture out of the chicken. As you can see, it's nice and soft and shreddable here, so I'm pulling that out, and I'm actually going to have my boyfriend shred that, but I'm just showing you how easy it is there. And once it's shredded, you're just going to go ahead and add that right back into the Instant Pot and all those juices. And then you're going to go ahead and give that all a good stir to get everything nice and combined with the chicken. And I just want to make the note that you can boil your chicken however you want and still add all these ingredients to it, or even get a rotisserie chicken and still add everything together, and it would be just as good. You don't need an Instant Pot for this. Next, the recipe calls for 16 6-inch flour tortillas. I just had these more normal soft taco size tortillas. Maybe they're closer to 9 or 10 inches. And I'm just going to use those. So I'm just going to go ahead and place a nice line of that chicken mixture right down the middle of my tortilla and repeat that process. I'm not doing all 16. We're just going to have some for dinner this night, and then the next day for leftovers I'll make fresh ones so the tortillas are nice and crispy. So the recipe actually has you bake these taquitos or whatnot, but I wanted them fried up like that nice crispy flour tortilla. So I just placed a little bit of oil on the bottom of my skillet here, and I'm just putting them down seam side down and flipping them till they're golden brown or to my liking, and I'm trying to just brown all sides of them. And I'm not fully deep frying them or anything like that. I just put a little bit of oil on the bottom, but it will fry that tortilla up nice and crunchy, and I just prefer that over the baked texture. But baking would be really easy to just quickly place them all on a baking sheet and they'd be good to go. And I didn't make that cilantro lime crema to go with these because I had some guac I needed to use up, so that was why I made this meal in the first place. So there I just have that guac and cheese, and these were super delicious. I loved these. Definitely my new favorite way of making chicken in the Instant Pot for taquitos. And I made some Spanish rice on the side, and I'll go ahead and leave a link to a video that I've made that in before. This last meal is honey garlic salmon. I'm starting off by making my side, which is brown rice in the Instant Pot because it's going to take a while. So I just put a little salt and butter in with my rice. My rice and water is a 1-to-1 ratio, making sure that's set to sealing. And brown rice takes longer than white rice, so I'm going to go ahead and cook this according to my Instant Pot chart, which says about 20 to 25 minutes. And then I'm going to go ahead and get the garlic ready for this recipe. And it calls for around 3 cloves. I probably used about 5, and I'm just going to use this little chopping tool to dice them up. If you can see, they're like nice big little chunks of garlic there compared to pressing them. And now I'm just taking my salmon fillets. It calls for 12 ounces of salmon, which is 2 to 3 fillet strips. I'm just using these 2 here, and I'm patting them dry with a paper towel, and then I'm going to go ahead and just season them with some salt and black pepper on both sides. And I had forgotten, but it calls for cayenne pepper as well. So you'll see me go ahead and add in a pinch of cayenne pepper onto each side of them. And then just go ahead and set those aside. Now we're going to get started on the sauce for the salmon, and I'm putting a little oil in my measuring spoon because it'll help the honey to glide out easier. The original recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of honey, but it also gives instructions to double the sauce amount if you like it more saucy, and I do, so I went ahead and doubled it, and I do recommend that. It didn't make out to be a lot of sauce. So I'm adding 4 tablespoons of honey, and then it calls for some apple cider vinegar, 1.5 teaspoons, so I'm using 1 tablespoon there because that's 3 teaspoons. And then it calls for warm water, 1 tablespoon. Again, I'm doubling it, so I'm adding 2 tablespoons of warm water. And then it just calls for a pinch of salt. So I added that in, and I'm going to go ahead and just give that all a good stir. Next, it says to heat up an oven-safe skillet. I'm using my enameled cast iron pan, and I'm going to go ahead and add in 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and I'm letting that heat up. And I'm going to go ahead and add my salmon fillets. It says to cook for skin side down for 1 minute and then turn the salmon over and cook for another minute. I don't actually have skin, mine are skinless, but I just did the side that would have had the skin. And then for 1 minute, yeah, and then I flipped them. You're supposed to let them cook for 1 more minute, and then you turn it over again so the skin is at the bottom again. At that point, it just asked me to add in the garlic, and so I'm just going to go ahead and add that to the pan. And then I'm just kind of using my spatula to move the salmon kind of over to one side of the pan so I can kind of make my little sauce mixture in a little space right there. And you're just going to go ahead and saute that garlic until it's slightly browned. And then you're going to go ahead and add in your honey mixture. And it calls for half a lemon sliced into wedges. So I went ahead and did that. And as you can see here, I decided to flip my salmon even though it didn't say to. But I wanted to check it to see if it was getting browned. And it got a nice crust on the bottom there, so as you can see. But I also just wanted it to cook evenly, and I was getting afraid that it wasn't going to cook all the way through. So I went ahead and flipped it. I'm not sure if it's necessary, but I think it was. Anyways, go ahead and add in those lemon wedges, and you're going to let this all cook and reduce until it's a nice like sticky sauce, which I can't remember how long it took, but it does take a little bit there. And as you can see, now it's starting to get nice and thick and bubbly, which is what you want. I took those nice brown bits of the sauce and kind of spread them all throughout, and on top it looks way better that way, and I sprinkled some parsley on top. And then I'm just using this Aldi steamed broccoli, and I have that there with my brown rice, and I sprinkled some of that everything but the bagel sesame seasoning on top of that. And I love salmon, so you can never go wrong with that. And yeah, that's all. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future What's for Dinner videos, and I hope you all have an amazing week.